Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Sideshed podcast. Thank you once again for sharing your earbuds with me, and you're joining us today for the third and final episode of the three-part series we have called Strategic Planning Done Right with my man, Edward Plant. Edward is from Institute for Couples in Business. He is based up in Queensland here in Australia, and man, I got to tell you, this podcast series was an absolute game changer for me. It has been incredible. Make sure you go back and you listen to the first two, please, before you listen to this one. The first one was called Beginning with the End in Mind. The second one was called Defining and Planning the Key Areas of Your Business. This episode is called Execution Will Trump Any Plan. And guys, I've got to tell you, it really has been a brilliant series, probably one of the best ones, I'd say. So, I remember when I took these notes for this back when I recorded it a few months back, I was writing furiously. So yeah, I'm sure you guys will do the same. Do me a favor, go and share this with somebody that you think will benefit from it. There's a lot of really, really good content in here. And of course, guys, if you want to continue this conversation, head across to the Facebook group. Edward's part of that community, so you can get hold of him in there. And he's always willing to answer your questions. Again, guys, fantastic podcast series. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. And so please, if you do enjoy it, leave us a review. We don't ask for a lot, but that is one thing that we do ask for. That's all from me. Let's jump in.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Sideshed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to part 3 of the Strategic Planning Done Right series that I'm conducting with my co-host, Mr. Edward Plant. Edward, welcome back.
Hey, Matt. Great to speak to you again.
Edward, you are from the Institute for Couples in Business. The website is instituteforcouplesinbusiness.com. You have been joining us on this series so that we can get a little bit granular when it comes to strategy, planning, goal setting, blah, blah, blah. The first episode, we spoke about beginning with the end in mind, where we covered off on a lot of, I suppose, the thought process behind setting goals and having an end goal that you're working towards, which I know over the years has been a bit of a battle, I suppose, for me and probably a lot of other listeners out there when you're trying to bring a wish into reality. But then in the following episode, we sort of spoke about how to define and plan the key areas of your business, which then, of course, help you set milestones and help you pave a bit of a roadmap towards getting towards that end goal, whether that's an exit strategy or an acquisition or whatever it might be. In this episode, which is the final one, we're going to wrap up with this one. It's we've called it Execution Will Trump Any Plan. And that's certainly been my experience. You can have the best plan on the planet, but unless you're ready to pull the trigger and get some action done, it's all for nothing. So thank you for joining us back on the show for this third and final episode. The first two were brilliant. And if listeners out there, if you did not happen to catch those, it would probably serve you best to go back and listen to them before you listen to this one, because as always, we've designed this series in a way that the previous or the episodes always stem into the previous ones. So go check them out. All the links will be available on the show notes. So head across to the show notes for this episode and you'll be able to see the previous episodes there as well. Likewise, you'll also be able to get hold of Edward if you so wish through the links that we've put on there. And if you've got any questions, by all means, just reply to wherever you see this come through. So Edward, let's dive into part 3.
Definitely, and I was having a bit of a chuckle there at when you were talking about the first 2 episodes, and we did planning and strategic planning and looking at all that planning, blah blah blah. And I think that blah 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 is a technical term to insert all the problems or requirements you have in terms of planning.
Exactly right. Oh, look, it's in my experience, it's almost been like a bit of a cliche comment that you hear being thrown around the inverted commas business coaching world. You got to start with the end in mind. You've got to, have your exit strategy in place and all this shit. Oh, God damn if I hear that again.
Oh, it's like you've got to work on the business instead of in the business. It's so frustrating, and there's a fair bit of sense behind it, but it's just overused and a bit of a catch cry that nobody actually knows what means.
Well, I mean, that's exactly right. But then the backbone of it is actually extremely relevant, but I think it just gets used so often and so out of context these days that it sort of just becomes so diluted in its meaning that I think people today sort of sit there and think, oh, okay, great, here we go again. Let me guess, work on, not in the business. Awesome.
Yeah, totally. And I sort of go, well, why can't you do both? And
Right.
like we've worked with a lot of tradies, and you guys are tradie focused, that love doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they try and build this business where they don't get to do any of it. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you become an administrator? You're awful at it.
It's a really good point, and I've had obviously loads of clients give the same feedback, and I've had loads of business coaches, harp on about how to get out of the business. But then when I speak to, a lot of our customers, a lot of our clients, they're when we talk about, implementing systems and processes and freeing up or removing them from areas of their business which is not productive, what it comes down to very often is removing them from the admin stuff which they suck at. And like people have this, this mindset of, well, if I'm going to be successful in my business, then I need to be the guy in the office, calling the shots, which is a complete fallacy when you look at the reality of the skill set that most of, us as tradespeople have. Your time is very often best spent on site, leading the guys, maybe not necessarily whacking the nails in, but, certainly being on site and being that, representing that side of the business.
I completely agree. When I was in the army, I was 23 years old. I had a engineering troop based in Darwin, 30 blokes. The average age was 32. So most of them were my seniors by 15 years.
Right.
And we had plumbers, carpenters, plant operators, dog handlers, truck drivers, you name it, we had all of them. I had a wealth of experience, and I wasn't the guy that was going to come in and tell them how to do the things. I needed to lead them and achieve missions with them and whatever it was. But I would once a month go down and just do shit jobs with them, whether it was cleaning a truck, changing oil on a thing, walking around and just chatting to the guys.
Yeah.
Not because the office didn't need me, but also it was that keeping current with them, the working with them and just getting dirty with them and showing them that while I'm the boss, I can get in and do it with you as well. And the weight of that simple action once a month was powerful. And for tradies out there, I think it's the same. It's you love doing that job. Put a job in once a month or once a quarter that you go out and do with the guys.
Do you know what else was interesting, Ed? An experience that I had a couple of years ago with a client, and kudos to him for, I suppose, being responsive to. Actually, to be honest with you, like most of our clients, colleagues, they are pretty upfront in this, in that sense of, well, I know that I'm probably I'm great out on the site. I'm great at doing all this sort of stuff, and I'm great at training my team and that kind of thing, but I had a client a couple of years ago, and he basically came to me and he said, look, I've got a real problem here. He goes, this is my business. I've been running it for 10 years, 15 years, or whatever it was. And I want to grow the business. But the problem in the business and the reason why it's not growing is because I'm leading it. And he said, I really need to put in place a CEO who has an idea how to grow the business so I can keep focusing on, training my team and manage and doing those side of things. And I was like, that's a pretty brave thing to come out and say after that long in business, like wanting to put someone in that can lead the organization.
Yeah. And in the last podcast, we talked about the 9 key areas of the business that we work with every client on how to grow their business to where they want it. And one of those areas for us is working in what we call your genius.
Right.
So in business, there's hundreds of things that need to be done. The reality is most people will be incompetent at about 60% of them.
Right.
They'll then be competent at about 30% of them. They'll then be good at another 5 to 10%. And then there'll be 2 or 3 things that they're absolutely amazing at.
Yeah.
And I think business is about getting rid of that other 97% and focusing in on those 3 things that you do amazing. And it doesn't matter what they are. It could be being on the job site. It could be training the guys. It could be generating business. It could be interacting with your top clients.
Yeah.
It could be creating systems. It could be managing it all. It could be getting out of it and setting everyone else up to do it. whatever it is, it's if you can focus on those three things and get rid of everything else, your business will be better off, your life will be better off, and everything goes well.
I think there's such a like a disconnect out there when people think, oh, okay, I need to build and grow the business so that I can get off the tools and, you know, and all that sort of stuff, which is fine if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to be the guy, you know, on the tools and you want to work towards that, then by all means, but don't, I mean, I just want to, you know, quantify out there for the listeners. That doesn't necessarily have to be you. Like if that's what you're good at and that's what you like doing, and so many of our clients love doing that, like that's their thing. And why wouldn't it be? They spent their whole career building up to, you know, becoming an expert on site and, you know, being the master of running the projects and that kind of thing. Like you don't have to feel like, well, great, what's the next stage? I want to be stuck in an office all day. Like it's certainly not the case. And now with the landscape that we live in from a technology point of view, so many of those office managerial tasks can be outsourced either locally or abroad. Like you really don't need to, for the better part, have that whole office sort of mindset structure that, you know, we may have had 15 years ago.
Yeah, completely. And I think this cycles back to the catch cry of start with the end in mind. And it's instead of playing at lip service, get really deep into that and go, well, what is that next step for me that I want?
Yeah.
Do I want to be out of the business? Do I want to be leading the business? Do I want to be managing the business? Do I want to be in doing it with the guys and running the jobs? Do I want to be, what's my role in all of that?
Yeah.
Where do I want it to be? And get really clear on that and then build it.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So when we talk about execution here, we've been through the process of, you know, starting with the end in mind and like having clarity around what that might look like for you. We've spoken about defining and planning the key areas of your business, and you gave us a really good framework there, which the listeners are going to be able to get hold of in the show notes, because there's a little competition we got going there where if you guys can fill out the street map that Ed's left behind, we're going to post it in the Facebook community, and Ed's going to give you a little, what was it, a copy of the book and
we'll do a
help you refine the map or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, a quick get on and how to enhance what you've done and take it to the next level.
Yeah, brilliant.
And I think this gets to the heart of what we've covered so far in the implementation. And I was sitting down with a couple of business owners 2 days ago, and one of them was saying, these are the 5 things I need to do, and this is the first one I need to do.
Right.
And what happens in businesses is you're in your business, you're working, and you see something and you think that's the right next step and the right way to do it, but you're limited by the knowledge that you have. And it's sort of the dog keeps doing the same tricks over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what business owners keep doing. They keep doing it the same way over and over again, which gives them pretty much the same results.
Would you call that innovating or evolving?
I think it's evolving.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be innovating because it doesn't need to be new.
Yeah.
It just needs to be a different way.
Yeah.
And I think doing things differently is really powerful.
I know recently, and actually I should make an introduction to you for a guy I had on the show recently, Nils Vesk, who's an innovation specialist for business. But he's amazing, this guy. Some of the ways that he can come up with. I mean, we're not talking about innovation, I suppose, like at the moment. Well, we kind of are, because, you know, in order to evolve, you need to innovate certain things, right? Like you're changing.
And I suppose fundamentally, innovation is doing something new for you.
Right.
Yeah. So you need to innovate for your business. It doesn't mean you need to create a world first something.
Right, exactly
you need to start doing it different.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's a big paradigm shift as well for business owners across the board, not necessarily in the trades. I mean, we had a fellow on the show a little while back who's quite an active member in our Facebook community, and he had a really innovative way to market his business. And it was really interesting the way that he got in front of potential customers. Dave's his name. He's in the community, but he basically was able to 10x his business in the space of 6 months by doing something that was a little bit outside of the box. And it was fascinating. I mean, and to be fair, like that may be a little bit of a segue from what we're talking about when we talk about executing. You know, execution will trump any plan. But at the same note, it's quite relevant as well, because he put a strategy together that would help him, I suppose, differentiate himself from his other competitors out there. And when he executed that strategy, it 10x'd his business in the space of 6 months. I mean, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, totally. And he did that by doing something new.
Right.
by analyzing it and working it out.
Right.
So what I think most business owners do is they crack on with a plan, but they end up doing the wrong things at the wrong time.
Right.
So their intent is good, they've done planning, and they've selected what is quite possibly not the best option. This guy that we were sitting with a couple of days ago, he had 5 things he wanted to do. He chose one. And the reality of that one he chose, it was going to keep him in a cycle of being reactive and crazy busy. So I just said, why don't we segue that one for a week or a month until you get this one right? And the one that we were talking about was getting him out of reactive. So every single day he was drawn from pillar to post, and most of his projects were his important projects were staying not done because he was consumed by reacting to everyone else.
Man, isn't that amazing? So yesterday, after we recorded our podcast in the morning, I was consulting with a client of mine. He's actually a leadership consultant. It was out at his office in Sydney, and spending a day in the office there. Like when we left, he said, "Oh, how do you got feedback? How do you think all that went?" And I said, "Mate, that everything's fine except for the fact that you, when you're in that office, just are killing it. Like so much stress as a result of him being there, and everything's reactive. Oh God, we need to do this real quick, and everyone sort of drops everything. And like you realise firsthand how unproductive being reactive can be.
And it becomes following that bright shiny object.
Yes.
And the problem when you've got a team is everybody follows the leader. So if the leader's doing it, everybody else is reactive. They're dropping things, picking up, going with what he says now, and then he changes it, and they're following it again.
Yeah.
And so the big point of this was by him he could have gone down a rabbit warren and worked on the automation of his business, which is the next thing he needs to do. But he would have gone and done that and probably not succeeded very well because he was reactive and had no time for it, and probably built really bad systems based around how he was doing it now because he was reacting all the time.
Right.
But by getting the reactivity gone, he'll create rhythm and stability and comfort. His team will rise, and his team will be able to take over a lot of what he needed to get done.
So,
but it's that in the implementation, it's that ability to really make sure you're doing the right thing that's key, and that can fast track your results so quickly.
It's tricky sometimes, isn't it, when you're in business and like things do pop up which are important, but perhaps not urgent, but regardless, they still need to get done before they become urgent.
Yeah.
You kind of like, well, there's sort of a fine line to walk there in the sense of, well, I know I need to get this done, like it's pretty important, but I also need to get this done because this is important. And I only have so much resource.
Totally. How many tradies would drop everything to go and do a site inspection to quote a job and then take weeks to get the quote through?
Right.
Or get to a new job site, or drop everything to go to a new inspection and not invoice for the jobs that they're still doing.
Yeah.
Like there's this kilter of drop everything for something and leave all these other important things out. And money in the bank's really important. So
yeah, no, you're right. There's definitely things in that space which need priority and don't get it. But to be fair, I think a lot of the guys, and especially the community now that we've got, a lot of these guys are getting quite on top of that. Like I find that's when we started the group off, there was a lot of conversations around that. And over the last few months, I've seen those conversations diminish quite a lot. So I'm thinking that...
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the guys are sort of... And to be honest with you, a lot of that specific task, or we're talking about quoting and invoicing and that kind of thing, a lot of that, the guys in the group have adopted recommended apps and solutions that have been, put forward by other community members. And they're like, well, we use this and it helps us achieve this. And now we don't chase any debt because it's all paid up. It's all paid on completion. And people are like, whoa, what? And like people are posting left, right and center, man, I've adopted this app and it's just, it's transformed my business. And so a lot of that sort of ties back to what we were saying about technology, like there are a lot of tasks within a business today that if you don't get exposure to new ways of doing things and innovating and evolving your business, then chances are you'll be doing things that are archaic and and unproductive. And there's ways that you can really make a massive dent in your bottom line by, implementing some tools that can free you up, free your team up, and reduce a massive amount of time.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I think time is one of those, like it's the only currency in the world that we can't replace.
Right.
So we can replace money, we can replace team, we can replace cars, whatever it is, but you can't get time back.
So when we're talking about execution, and execution will trump any plan, how does that framework look for you? Like, what's the way that you make sure that things are being executed on time, in order of priority regularly?
Yeah. So this stems from me attending a lot of training over my life, personal development, business development, and the list goes on. And there's just a statistic in the industry that 83% of people that attend a training event will take an amazing amount of notes, have a heap of things that they could implement, and will do nothing with them.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm big guilty of that.
It's to put the book on the shelf when you get back to the office, and then 3 weeks later go, can't even find the book because it's snowed under with other stuff and you haven't looked at it. Did
you also know that 76% of statistics are made up?
I did. I normally have it at about 78%, but
sorry, dad joke. Anyway.
Yeah, totally. So that number's high regardless of what it is.
Yeah.
Podcast to podcast. But so a lot of people get a lot of information but don't do anything with it. And that's where planning falls down.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really refining into a couple of steps that I would recommend to make sure that your execution is high class.
Well, maybe we could even use that example that you gave then as a framework. So, somebody's listening to a podcast or they're attended an event and they're jotting down all these notes. So what's the framework from an execution point of view that you would recommend to people when they're in that position? They're like, right, now I've got all these amazing notes. Either I stick this in my folder and shove it in my top drawer and never look at it again, or I start implementing something.
Yeah, totally. So the first point to really acknowledge and get their head round is that a half-assed plan executed really well is better than a full plan not executed.
Yeah.
And it sounds awful, but you're better off with an idea that you run with than a detailed plan with no execution.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying jump on an idea and just start implementing, but we need to get that 80% planned solution and implementing it straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first component, that the focus needs to be a balance between good planning and great implementation.
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport, because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because, first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you.
I suppose the question that I would start with in relation to the example that we're currently using is this. If you've got a notebook, three A4 pages full of notes, how do you define which of those action points are critical to, or which should be implemented first?
Yeah.
Because then that sort of goes back to what we were saying about, being busy in the business, being busy and not actually working on what's critical. Like, how do you define what's critical?
Yeah, totally. So we've got a mission success criteria that we go through, and I'll come to that in a in a second.
Okay.
And I can walk through that framework, which will be really helpful for the guys. So the next one is then you'll have a list of 100 things to do.
Yeah.
You've taken a heap of notes, go through. In every intensive we run, we have the action pages and the notes pages, but then we also have a top three actions page per session.
Mm-hmm.
So 2-day intensives are broken down into 8 sessions.
Mm.
So at the end of it, there'll be 24 points that are game changers for those businesses. So from this podcast, I'd be going through, if people are taking notes, it'd be going through and going, okay, what are the top 3 things that I need to do or take away or change as a result of listening to Matt and Ed?
Yeah.
And just highlight those 3.
And the reality is as well, guys, like it will very likely involve yourself, I would imagine, in a lot of these scenarios, like, swallowing your pride and making that realization that, okay, well, yeah, I'm doing all my account reconciliation at the moment and I completely suck at it. So I've got to get myself out of that role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think business is, you need to suck it up and do it until you can get to the next step where you get someone else in.
Yeah.
And it's that continually stepping and upskilling. But even if you get a bookkeeper in, it doesn't divulge the responsibility you have to hold them accountable.
Right. And in that scenario, sorry, we're going on a little bit of a segue here, but in order to hold people accountable, in my experience, the best tool to do that is project management. How do you structure that?
Yeah, totally. And it depends on the size of the project, the regularity of it. But we have reporting schedules that happen with every project that we create.
Okay.
And that reporting schedule is based on the level of trust I have of the person's performance.
Yep.
And the outcome and how important the outcome is to the frequency.
Because I try, whatever I do now with any of my team, I try really hard to make sure that there is a detailed project management workspace built out for whatever task or whatever they're trying to deliver. And the project management for you guys that aren't familiar, it's who does what when, and then the systems is sort of the how to do it. So most of our projects, they will have maybe made up of a series of tasks or different deliverables, and each of those deliverables may have a system tied to it that shows them how to deliver that task. Yeah,
totally. And the only addition I'd put into that is in every project that we have, I have a why in there. So a why is this important?
Yep.
And I do, why is it important to the business? Why is it important to me? And why is it important to you?
Yeah.
And what that does is increases the buy-in, and they can see the big picture of how it's fitting in. So it's not just them with a task that they need to plod through. There's an impact for them and the team and what we're going to achieve.
And the ongoing argument that I get in relation to this sort of stuff is, yeah, Matt, that's all great, but I don't have the time to set that stuff up, which is in a sense true, but in a sense false, because the paradigm there is if you set this thing up once and ideally you shouldn't have to go back there and ever address it again until the time when you need to improve it, modify it, whatever. But it does save a ridiculous amount of time. And if you're doing it the right way, it will help you deliver a consistent result on whatever that project might be for you or for your team. And that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I get really frustrated when people use not having enough time as an excuse.
Yeah.
Because people can make time for stuff and they do all the time. They're just using that as an excuse not to change. And the reality is keep doing it the way you're doing it and keep getting the results you're getting.
Yeah.
Like keep staying busy.
Yeah.
Keep staying not having that money that you want. Keep not having holidays every year.
Yeah.
Keep not picking the kids up from school. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
But if you want to change, you need to change.
So for me, like execution, like project management plays a significant role in execution. And to be honest, I know for a fact I wouldn't be able to deliver on half of the things that we do if we didn't have good project management in place. Does that correlate into the trades?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, well, it correlates into business.
Yeah.
And I mean, project management started in the trades.
Right.
Like a construction job is a project management job, and every trade is in that world. So yeah, definitely. And I think the reason project management helps is it breaks complicated tasks down to simple steps.
Right.
And that's all we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're going, okay, we need to increase revenue by 10 grand a month. Okay, how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do these 3 core things, and inside those, we're going to do these 10 tasks.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can chip away at task 1.
Yeah.
Instead of it being 10 grand, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
It's okay, I need to contact 5 new customers, whatever it is.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I suppose as well, for the listeners out there, you typically start with that with the result of the task. So, as Ed just said then, okay, we want to make 10 grand a month. So that would be the finishing point. And then the project is made up, or the management or the execution is made up of a series of deliverables that will help you get to there, like milestones, if you want to call it that. And you can hold yourself, you can hold your team accountable to those milestones throughout that process. So basically, tick it off as you go kind of scenario.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
So we've covered changing the mindset, taking many tasks down into a few that you're going to focus on, and those will probably become projects, and then looking at how you project manage them to success.
Yeah.
The next critical one I would suggest is getting somebody else to help how you're going to implement and project manage that project. So I know that when I talk to a business owner, I make a couple of changes that make their life easier, makes the project happen faster and more successfully. And that's the benefit of a coach or a third person to do it. Now, for a lot of people out there, it's not a go and get a business coach, but it's a go and find somebody that you can say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and this is how I was going to do it. What do you think?
Yeah.
And get that third person. If you can get a coach on board, do it. If not, find somebody that can brainstorm and throw ideas and questions at you just to help you make it better in your business.
Man, it's one of those, you probably see it even more than I do, but it just seems like every bastard wants to call themselves a business coach today.
Yeah, totally. And I hate it. And I'm not a business coach. I don't do that.
And I think the reality is for, a lot of us that are in professional services anyway, you kind of, to a degree, fly that flag within, your offering. However, I certainly would never want to bracket myself as a business coach because I just feel like they're a dime a dozen. And, even a lot of these programs out there, I feel like it's so much a case of, one person professing to be the greatest at everything, well, I can show you how to do everything from finance right through to sales and marketing, right through to onboarding. And I'm like, really? Like, surely you're not the greatest person on the planet at all of these things. Otherwise you wouldn't be selling your shitty program for, $1,000 a month or whatever.
Yeah. And it just defies logic. Like Nobody's that good at everything.
Right.
Like Richard Branson isn't. He gets other people in to do it all.
Well, and that's exactly right. And this goes back, I suppose, to that, the story I was talking about, my client that was looking for another CEO. Richard Branson has CEOs in place for all of his businesses, like he can't sit there and, he's sitting out on Necker Island on his jet ski. He doesn't want to have to worry about all this other stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I've always found when we're tying back to what you just said then about, getting help or running ideas off people, I would probably quantify that or clarify a bit deeper and say run ideas to the right people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the worst advice is free advice very often, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to give you free advice. And by all means, you can get advice from people. Our Facebook community is built up of the global business owners that have had experience within certain things, and I'd be far more inclined to take advice from somebody that's been down a path that I want to go down and hear what they have to say, as opposed to somebody that's got a business card on their business coach on their business card.
Yeah, totally. And so in that case, like your mum may not be the best person.
Do you know my mum? That's crazy.
No mum jokes, please.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that's I found that's been a big battle actually, Ed. Over the years, to be honest with you, I've been struggling with that. As a business owner, looking for the right help from the right people. I struggle with that today to find people that can help. But I've learned over the years that you've kind of got to be more granular with what the areas that you want help with, and I've found that's made a big difference for me.
I was going to say the best advice I've got for that is the problem people have is they go in wanting
the
not
magic,
sure
the
on
magic
what they
pill,
want, or they want too much from one widget.
Yeah.
And whatever that widget is, whether it's a software to help with quoting or it's a mentor or a coach or somebody to support them grow their business.
Yeah.
And so the problems happen when they're not clear, when they want too much, and when the person they're talking to is trying to do too much.
Yeah.
And so they just cause confusion and not getting the results. And you go to somebody and they start doing something and you realize it's the wrong something and it just spins. So by getting into that by people being really clear on where they're going and what they want out of it and where their weaknesses are, helps them go, how am I going to fix these weaknesses?
And one thing that I've learned, and I've said this many times on the show, and I will happily throw my hand up to say that I am not the best person to be running the finance side of the business. It's just something that I just cannot. I find extremely hard to get excited about. But I will say that as a starting point for people out there that are thinking, okay, well, let's talk about things that I need to get good at from the beginning. I would say numbers is the most important thing. And, having an understanding of, cash flow and, sales that are coming in, sales that are to be coming in, what your expenses are and all that kind of stuff. Like that really does help you strategize and dictate a roadmap in order to help all areas of the business grow. That could be bringing staff in, it could be adding services, it could be increasing your prices or whatever it is. But having an understanding of those numbers is so important.
It's essential. And if you look at it, the reason most people are in business is to make money. Like there'll be a heap of other things behind it, but at the end of the day, you're not driving a business to go broke.
Yeah.
You're driving a business to make more money, to help your family, to send your kids to school, to go on the holidays you want, to create more freedom for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's the number one reason you're in the business you're in. Therefore, you need to give it the attention it deserves.
So I would say and don't get me wrong, I'm not an accountant, but for all the listeners out there, I think this is relevant advice to anybody at the very, very base level. Employ some sort of cloud bookkeeping program into your business because it will just give you such a clear overview and like good or bad, mind you, I might add, like it's not always rainbows and unicorns when you look at these things like, oh, magical. Like sometimes it's pretty, looking truth head on, but that's the idea. And I've just found for, myself and my clients, implementing a program like Xero Accounting or QuickBooks or MYOB or whatever the hell you want to use. It doesn't really matter what you use in a day, just as long as you've got something there that can give you a visual on your expenses and what's coming in, then that is a very powerful tool.
Agreed. And I think if the numbers aren't good, people avoid them. But the reality is the numbers are still going to be there. Just because you hide them or ignore them doesn't change them.
And I did that for years.
So you might as well step up.
Yeah.
Face it like a big boy and
exactly
tackle it.
And then I think when you tie that, having that visual, tie that into somebody that can help you improve it, then that's when it starts getting powerful. So yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page there.
Totally. And so the next step in execution that trumps planning is really about taking weekly action.
Right.
So quite often projects that are going to really impact your business are not things that have a deadline on or need to be done every single day.
Okay. Example?
Well, for example, systemization of the business.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make everybody's life easier, but does it change your life today if you don't do it for another week?
Right.
No. So it's really easy to push off and put off and not do anything for in any week, any month, any quarter.
Right. And
suddenly you're 3 months down the track and you're looking back going, those systems would still be really helpful. So, therefore it's really easy to not take actions. But once you're clear on those 3 projects that we've agreed on for the next 90 days, taking weekly actions on those is critical in your success.
I like what you said before as well about just removing the time excuse from your repertoire, because at the end of the day, it's complete bullshit. Like those sort of things you need to make time for, and that's part of business. So, if that means, taking Friday afternoon off or whatever to go and review those things, create a system, check your numbers, then that's still business. You're still working. You're just not swinging hammers.
Yeah. And if we've gone through the process properly, we've identified what's the most important goals for you to achieve. Now we've worked out what the projects are that you need to achieve those goals. So therefore, it's really congruent and tied in, and it's really important for you to take these actions. So even if that means you turning the TV off at 7:30, 8 o'clock and doing 45 minutes or an hour on these projects, then you need to do it.
Yeah.
Or if it's getting up at half an hour earlier to get them started at the beginning of the day before you get on site, then you need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's taking those actions.
And I think as well, like you'll find that they kind of fuel each other. Like if you're in that scenario where you're like, no, you don't understand, Matt. Like I can't take half a day off work because if I do, like the job site will just turn to pandemonium. And if that's the case, then that's probably as a result of the fact that you don't have these systems in place to begin with. So it's like chicken or the egg, But the only way it's going to get better is if you address it.
And for those people, I'd say that's fine. So stop trying to take off a huge amount of time.
Right.
Like if you're on the job site and you need to be there, duck off for half an hour.
Or sit in the lunch shed even and do it.
Yeah, sit in the car and do something.
Yeah.
Have a laptop or get mobile or do that thing. If the guys are going to cause problems within half an hour of you leaving, you're in trouble.
Right.
Your business is really struggling and there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So so that means systemization isn't probably the solution.
Yeah.
You need to be doing team and getting them on track to create that freedom, but you need to be spending time on it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, is there another step?
So the last one is lead the change. So this change is going to ripple throughout your business. If it's only you at the moment, then you need to lead the change for yourself. But if you've got a team, you need to lead the change from the top. And by you taking weekly actions to the important things, the team are going to get in behind you as well. Mm-hmm. And they need to lift and be doing the same thing as well. Mm-hmm. Don't work in isolation. Get the team working towards the change for you, but you need to lead it. And it's sort of the saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
Stop blaming other people. Stop waiting for other people. Get in and get it done for you.
Yeah. And in my experience, when that sort of action takes place from the top, it has a very powerful effect on the rest of the organisation. Like people can sort of see the change, and in most cases, they'll want to buy into it. And if not, then maybe they're not the right fit. But
I remember when I was in Iraq, and there's a lot to be. Leading from the front has its benefits, but it always has its disadvantages.
Right.
And I'm not saying you should always lead from the front, but you need to lead the change. And I remember when I was in Iraq, our division commander, who had something like 10,000 people under his command in the province we were in, he went out one day and got stuck in the middle of a firefight, and there was live video footage of him with his 9mm pistol sticking it up over these APC armoured personnel carriers, firing back at these people that had AK-47s and mortars and stuff like that. And it was like, this dude's crazy, but so awesome that he's out there leading, doing in the middle of a firefight and taking control of it.
Yeah.
And he was yelling to the platoon commander to go do this, and it was just inspiring, and he was in the middle of it, leading the change.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and that's a big thing, isn't it? Like, and you see it all the time. Leadership's not so much about telling people what to do, it's showing them. Another cliche comment, but super relevant. Don't tell me, show me.
That's right. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, what do you reckon? Does that pretty much wrap this episode up?
Yeah, so the major things to do for the implementation is just get implementing. But to do it, you're going to have to change your mindset, distill down the many tasks to the few that need your attention, get good project management into it, which ties back into the planning really nicely. Get a third-person support to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. Take weekly actions and lead the change.
And the other thing you can do, guys, as well, like when we're talking about third-party people, third-party intervention and that kind of thing. One thing that I've done in the past, and if you don't want to go down the path of getting a business coach, inverted commas, that's fine. But it doesn't have to be a business coach. It could be somebody that's got similar results to what you want. it could be a colleague within a similar industry, or maybe you're a plumber and they're a sparky and they've got, great results and you want to see how they've done it. Like, these people are very often more than happy to help. Like, people want to help. I know I've worked in some massive organizations, plumbing companies, and almost on a weekly basis there would be other plumbers come to have a meeting with the director at the time, and he was so open and generous about helping people achieve what he's achieved, priced correctly. Because at the end of the day, you've got to think of it from an industry perspective, if you can help your competition or colleagues, improve and grow a better business, then it only really, in the day, helps the industry as a whole. And that's especially relevant with things like, pricing, for example. If you can help a competitor increase the prices so they're similar to yours, that's only going to help you. So, it's going to reduce things like undercutting. So you don't have to get caught up in the whole, I need to find the right business coach. Go and speak to somebody that's done what you want to do and see how they did it.
Yeah, just get help. And it's even reaching out in the group, the amazing group you've got, Matt.
Right.
And it's finding somebody that's talking about something that you've got a problem with.
Yeah.
And going, oh, mate, I've seen you giving advice on this. Can I have a 20-minute chat to talk to you about my situation?
Yeah.
I'd love some help.
And that's exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of qualified people in that community. I mean, we recently did a podcast with a mate of mine, Darren, who's got a kitchen building company, and now he's currently living in Turkey on his yacht. He's taking 2 years off the business, and it's still running. And people are like, how the hell can you do that? You run a kitchen, you're a builder, effectively. And he's done it through systems and processes, and now people are...
And having the right team.
Yeah, and people just ask him, how have you done this? And so now he's messaging me saying, well, man, you know what? I'm getting a lot of people asking me how I've done this. What do you reckon? Should I start teaching people? I was like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, there's very few people from a coaching perspective that can say that they've done that. Like, people can tell you how to do things, but it's not necessarily based off results they've got themselves. And that sort of ties back to, what we were saying before, Ed, about finding relevant, like, people that are experts at certain things. It's not necessarily somebody who's going to be the expert at everything, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, totally. And the example is we run a lunch every 6 weeks for business leaders, business owners that are doing whatever they're doing, to come around and sit and just chat to other business owners, get help.
Yeah, right.
And everyone, we bring in a business leader who's doing amazing in their world. And we got a guy called Steve Scanlon in, who's an ex-rugby league player, started his own business 5 years ago. He was in huge amount of debt. I think he got up to $500,000 in debt and was really struggling to get out of it. And he has an approach to his life that if I can help someone, it's wrong of me not to do. So he started changing that debt around. And Jeff Horn, was
Australian boxer.
Yeah, Australian legend, welterweight champion. He was working at a TAFE, and he needed $1,000 to go over to New Zealand to fight. And there was some luncheon or something to try and raise some money for him. And Steve just went, I love this guy. I love this guy's passion. I'm going to do what I can to help him. And he ended up sponsoring him, covered it over, got a heap of his guys from the business to fly over. And they've been in Jeff Horn's corner ever since.
Yeah, wow.
So just after he went to the States to fight in Vegas, he was touching base with Steve, and Steve had helped get him over there again.
Yeah.
Now Jeff's worth $5 million a year or whatever it is, and he's flying. But it's that Steve Scanlon has this approach of, if I can help someone, it's wrong of me not to.
Yeah.
And so yesterday his business is $45 million a year in one arm, and he's got another 2 arms that are doing some amazing things as well.
Wow.
So he's running a big business. He's busy. He's got a lot on.
Yeah.
Yesterday he drove down from Brisbane to the Gold Coast to sit down with 15 business owners, have lunch, help them, and just be so generous.
Yeah, right.
So it's just an excuse if you don't have time.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. All right. Well, mate, thank you very much for your time. This has been a brilliant series. So for the listeners out there, that was the 3rd part of the Strategic Planning Done Right series. You have been listening to myself, Matt Jones, and Edward Plant. from the Institute of Couples in Business. If you want to get hold of Edward, you can head across to the show notes where there'll be links to his business website, which is instituteforcouplesinbusiness.com. There'll also be a couple of links to some of the social channels. There's a closed Facebook community which you can jump in, and there's some Instagram handles and things like that. Edward, also, we are going to run a bit of a competition with the, what do we call it, the street map that you spoke about, the
business
framework.
street map.
Yep. So, guys, when the, was that part one? It must have been part one. We spoke about that. Yeah. So when the first episode comes out, guys, there will be a framework that you can get hold of through the show notes. If you download that, and we're going to run a bit of a competition in the Facebook group there where you can fill yours out, and Edward's going to help you refine it. We'll probably do that through Facebook Live or something like that. And then there's also a book there as well. So there'll be a link to Edward's book on the show notes. What was that book called again?
It went Amazon #1 bestseller around the world, and is called Lead the Ship. We talk about genius in the podcast, and one of my strengths is really helping people lead their business better. So I've done it, taken soldiers around the world, and the book is all about how to lead the ship for your business to get better results from your team, create a sustainable growth culture in your business, and get your A players performing.
Well, by the time this goes live, I will endeavour to have read that book, so I'm looking forward to it.
Sweet. I'll ask you a couple of questions.
All right, fantastic. Well, mate, thank you again for your time. Much appreciated. I know you're a busy man, so
It's been a pleasure, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of the community as well. We very much appreciate your contribution there.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it's a bit like Steve. If I can help, please reach out. I'd love to.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.